So in my last video, I mentioned that I wanted to brush up on the Soulsborne lore, and there's really no other person to get an understanding of the story other than Body Vidya. There's a couple of people, but nobody does it with the production value of Vadi. And I figured I might as well start with Demon Souls. And I think I'm going to be doing it with all of the Souls games. So it's going to be a pretty long series.
Mankind were given souls. What is a soul? It's the power of clarity present in all living things. The soul is the means by which we can comprehend the world around us. It is the soul of the mind, key to life's ether. It's logic, which in Demon Souls mediates and binds together.
So let me go ahead and read that real quick. This is Japanese dialogue. Logic of all things that live, which no longer returns to its master. Power of the soul that comprehends relations and mediates them.
All of creation. Thus, with a soul, we can think, and through thought, we can influence the world around us. And when this soul power is redirected by the Maiden in Black, we are granted possibility, allowing us to better interfere with the laws of nature. Things like conjuring fire or curing sickness. These spells become possible through intelligence, defined as our ability to comprehend things, and faith, our conviction in their reality. These magics are formally known as the soul arts, and with them, man has the power to meddle with creation. However, consider the words of Uriah, the witch.
If there is a God, he gave us souls to do good, not to practice witchcraft.
So, to rectify this
is one of those things that is really interesting about the storytelling. There's always conflicting dialogue, and maybe it's just how I interpreted what she said, but on the one hand, you have the soul, which gives you comprehension and allows you to do soul magic, and on the other hand, you have Uriah, who is saying that our soul is not meant for such things. But if it wasn't meant for it, then what is the reason that we're able to understand it and perform it if we're not supposed to be doing it in the first place?
On the second day, a soul-devouring demon was placed upon the earth. What is a demon? A demon is a beast with the ability to rob living things of their souls. A demon devours these souls and amasses them into a particularly large soul known as a demon soul. Naturally, these demon souls possess power that's incomparable to ordinary souls, and that power is further shaped by the body housing it. And despite demons being loosely defined at one point as beyond human, anything can become a demon, even a human, even you. Who is the Maiden in Black?
That was also interesting because you get to see that in some of the bosses as well. The Tower Knight is one of them, but also the boss on 1-1, when they die, their soul actually reveals the human soul that the demon soul took possession of. So I thought that's a really interesting detail that they included in the Demon Souls remake.
She's the heroine of this story who enables your level ups. Blinded with wax, this candle maiden performs her duties, going around and keeping the temple's lights on with her lamplit staff, which makes her, in many ways, the first firekeeper. So on that note,
that's interesting. I really like that, and I never really thought about it like that either.
Firekeeper by Anato Finstark. It's a take on that blind composure that firekeepers have. Click the link in the description to support the channel. Maybe consider getting this as a gift for yourself or someone else.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, guys. You should check that out.
Her subdued manner, the Maiden in Black was once one of the Old One's most dangerous demons. And while we don't know of her past deeds or misdeeds, she too is bound to the Nexus like the Monumentals, like us, and like the Old One. What is the Old One? It's the original demon that was placed upon the earth.
The Old One is the bottomless pit of nothingness, with an insatiable appetite for the souls collected by its faithful demons.
In order to end all life, this ancient beast curates demons to gather up all
That's a really cool image.
souls as it slowly spreads the deep fog across the world. What is the deep fog? It's a thick, colorless mist that started to spread upon the Old One's awakening. No one outside can see through the fog, and anyone who attempts to enter it disappears, never to return. The one exception to this is the mighty warrior Valifax, who tore through the fog and told the world of Boletaria's plight. It is through this fissure that you enter the fog in the introduction.
So that you may lull the old one back to slumber.
Inside, all of the engulfed lands look much the same as they did before, but with misty distortions further diffusing each section of each world. But because of this diffusion of space, we can even visit other worlds in our diffused soul form. Furthermore, the demon vanguards near the edges of the fog are called diffused vanguards, and even the old one, at the root of it all, is called the diffused one. So diffusion is mentioned a lot more in the Japanese text, and for good reason, because think about it, the soul is the logic of the world, and the soul grants humans clarity. Fog, by nature, obscures that clarity, and therefore, since clarity is so important to the logic of the world, the very fabric of reality has become tested.
I wonder if there is a deeper connection between the fog that you can pierce through the random levels, and then the fog that gets pierced right here in this moment. Because I like that idea that fog is the bane of your soul, because it disrupts the clarity. But the fact that we can go through it is making me wonder if there is a connection between going through this one and going through regular stage fog doors. And it's also, this is probably just the particle effects, but it kind of gives off like a space vibe. But again, it's probably like particle effects, and maybe I'm looking a little too deep into it.
And therefore, since clarity is so important to the logic of the world, the very fabric of reality has become tested. That is why the world needs monumentals.
We preserve the fabric of reality.
So if life, especially within the deep fog, relies on perception to shape reality, what happens when there's nothing there to perceive it? Well, then nothing exists.
And a land barren of souls is absorbed by fog and banished to the infinite darkness.
One of the only things keeping the enveloped world bound to reality are the souls.
I like the idea of that fog, and if you notice in Dark Souls, that area is covered in fog. The little area that they show you in one of the trailers, I believe it's the opening cinematic. So that's just that idea of fog, distortion, hollowing, possibly, maybe showing a connection between demon souls and dark souls, a deeper underlying connection that is really interesting and is connected just by this small little detail.
The infinite darkness.
One of the only things keeping the enveloped world bound to reality are the souls observing it. And so, the demons devour those souls. Everyone and everything must be soul-starved. What are the soul-starved? The soul-starved are living beings, but robbed of their souls. Life can exist without a soul, but at that point it's arguably not you that is alive. Souls permit living things agency, and thus a will which cultivates consciousness and personality, so without a soul, one is simply an empty husk, acting solely on instinct, hungry for the soul.
That sounds very familiar to
So
being
it's no
hollowed.
surprise that those within the deep fog trade in souls.
I wish to stay here, but I need souls to remain sane. As you know, of course.
Those who become starved are often enslaved by the demons to help gather more souls. For examples of this, look to the soul-starved depraved ones. The miners, the soldiers of Boletaria, they're all united against you because of your sanity, your souls. One soul-starved creates another, and then gathered souls make their way up the chain, collected by the archdemons in service to the Old One. What is an
It's just one big pyramid scheme, I'm
They're
telling you
demons
guys.
appointed by the Old One to lead other demons, benefiting from the souls that their underlings gather before passing them along. Each demon chief commands the lesser demons in a particular area, typically their land of origin, but no matter their individual motivations, all is in service to the Old One.
You know, it's kind of interesting because these guys don't look hollowed at all. They look like regular soldiers, and that is kind of the thing about Boletaria, is that a lot of these humanoid characters don't really look depraved or soul-starved, but I guess they are. I may be getting it confused with how this 3-1 character, I don't know the names, I'm sorry, how she looks really old, like she's been existing for a long time, and I can't find it, so I'm just probably going to skip it. Or like guys like this, where they look like they've been around for a long time just trying to gather souls. The enemies in the enemies in Boletaria seem just like regular people for the most part, with the exception of like the blue-eyed knights, red-eyed knights. These guys just look like regular people. So I don't know, it's kind of crazy.
Why does the Old One exist? Because man was meant to use their souls for thought, not sorcery. The soul arts naturally cause man to turn on each other, to acquire each other's power, so...
To acquire each other's souls. Yeah, that makes sense.
God must have witnessed humans abusing his gift of clarity to wish harm upon creation itself. That's why, on the second day, God fought poison with poison. Who is God? God is simply the nameless creator referenced in the prologue. His character, if you can call it that, is mentioned in a couple of other places. First, by Alant, who believes that life is suffering and says that God was actually merciful in his creation of the Old One. Second, he's mentioned as a malicious force in the item description of the Northern Regalia, a sword God left behind in the world along with the Old One. This sword splits into two opposing blades, Soulbrand and Demonbrand, which present man with two parts.
It's probably like the coolest weapon in all of the Soulsborne series.
Coveting the souls of others. But humans continued to use the soul for magic for much of history. For simplicity, this history can actually be quite neatly divided into 3 eras.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that it was divided into 3 different eras.
What was the Mythic Era? So just like mythology in our own world, where superhuman heroes walked the earth, the Mythic Era could have been an age of legendary heroes who could perform feats that were truly beyond man. Evidence of this time include Duran, the demigod, Big M, who slaughtered dragons with his bare fists, the hero mentioned by the rune sword and shield, and also the storm rulers of the Shadowmen. Naturally, there should have been a sharp decline in magical strength after this. What was the Classical Era? The cultures succeeding the heroes of the Mythic Era continued to pursue the soul arts. Recognizing this power as somehow divine, each incorporated magic into their religion, though none of these pagans worshipped the singular god described earlier. But most guilty of all in their pursuit of power were the Monumentals. Who were the Monumentals? They were the major power of the Classical Era, this magic-based society that controlled the world thanks to their mastery of the soul arts. It was this insatiable pursuit of power that led them to discover, worship, and eventually awaken the Old One, kickstarting the first Scourge. What is the first Scourge? This is the first calamity.
Okay, so there's a lot of information going by at once. This may be explained later on down the road, but I just want to also mention that I am learning Demon Souls, so if you guys are a little bit more knowledgeable in the subject than me, just be patient, or if anything, you don't really have to watch this video, it's okay. But I am trying to learn, because it seems like, for the most part, everybody is abusing the soul arts, and the people who are most proficient at it either knowingly or unknowingly summoned the Old One, which is, it's kind of interesting, because now it begs the question, did they do it on purpose, or did they do it by accident through experimenting with something that they shouldn't have been? Is it something that they called forth, like maybe in Bloodborne, or is it something that is just accidental? It does seem like it was an abuse of power. Hey guys, I just want to remind you that if you're enjoying the video so far, to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget to turn on those notifications so you can find out when I upload my next video of exploring the lore, Soulsborne edition.
Eventually awaken the Old One, kickstarting the first Scourge. What is the first Scourge? This is the first calamity, directly caused by the Monumentals' misuse of the soul arts. The deep fog consumed monumental civilization and nearly the entire world with it. While the Monumentals successfully battled the demons and lured the Old One into slumber, by the time they had done so, most of the world as they knew it had already vanished. So in order to connect what little of the diffused lands remained...
It also seems like the demons are a match to the Mythic Era, and the demons that are born from this event are way bigger than what you would find when you actually play the game. At that point, it's almost like a hierarchy, whereas these guys look like they can all just be like main bosses, comparable to like the Dragon King or something.
And mend them back together, they created the Archstones. what is an Archstone. Continuing to use the power of the soul arts, the Monumentals crafted keystones, which were capable of linking people and places alike. This bond can be manipulated for teleportation or even bodily restoration. So what is soul form? It's the phantom body that you possess after death.
That's a cool
Your
image.
soul is significantly more vulnerable and can even lose its will over time, as shown by the Crestfallen. At least, unlike normal spirits, getting killed will return your soul to the Nexus, for that is where yours is bound. What is the Nexus? After giving 6 Archstones to the leaders of 6 powerful civilizations, the Monumentals sealed the Old One in the Nexus and sacrificed their humanity to become the Keymen we are familiar with. Called the Linchpin Temple in the Japanese, the Nexus acts as the hub to this Archstone network, with the Monumentals serving as a sort of human sacrifice for recovering the diffused world, filled with the survivors of a once mighty.
It's also interesting to see that these Monumentals are kids, whereas the ones that they showed seem like they're a little bit more adult or teen at like the very least.
Hope that the world could be mended. What is the medieval era? So this would have been an age of feudal kingdoms, largely devoid of magic. Having narrowly avoided their lands being swallowed by the deep fog, the different societies obeyed the Monumentals' prohibition, despite magic being so central to their cultures up until then. Key buildings like the Ivory Tower, the Dragon God Temple, or the Shrine of Storms were abandoned or buried, and many of these pagan cultures died out, or were largely forgotten. Despite all of this happening only a few hundred years ago, humans quickly forgot about the existence of souls and the soul arts, and the same was true for the Archstones, with many of them being lost.
And you would think that the problem would go away, right?
Gnawed on by rats. Outlawing knowledge carries consequences, and many barbarous cultures nurtured this aversion to even the mere legend of magic. But nowhere was this ignorance and antagonism more obvious than in the Temple of God. What is the Temple of God? It's the predominant faith that you will encounter in-game. This priesthood apparently originated in the land of Merd, where its first temple was built, and while this land of origin is now long lost, the religion has become widespread thanks to its very relevant message. The priests of these temples preach of one God who is good, and that magic is an evil which desecrates him. So it should come as no surprise that this doctrine appealed to people who had.
It's kind of cool that there's an item in the video game that kind of contradicts that. I think it's the Talisman of Gods.
And persecuted for their cursed sorcery ever since. But that attitude began to change when the soul arts were rediscovered. According to the official Demon Souls website from 2009, that is unfortunately now lost, King Allant XII made a journey to the limits of human-inhabited lands, where he discovered a giant linchpin temple in a hinterlands of icy mountains. This temple is almost certainly the Nexus, and the story of his journey here is closely linked to the broken 6th Archstone and the cut content of the game that once lay beyond it. Check out this video if you'd like to learn more. Thanks to the now
I think I've seen that one a long time ago.
Standardizing the study of the soul arts, education and practice of magic became easy, even for common people. It wasn't uncommon to see a local magician in any given town, and anyone could learn how to perform spells. That said, rich nobles received the best instruction, and the power of this social class would have helped to maintain the status.
And it's interesting that social class does play a factor, because, I mean, hell, why not, I guess, right? The class is called royalty, so it plays a factor in a lot of things, so I guess it's no different in soul arts.
Quo, deepening society's dependence on magic. Years passed, and Boletaria continued to flourish thanks to magic. The second Scourge was inevitable.
It is natural that it would lead to that.
It's the current demon calamity that's befalling the world. Finally, we approach the events of the game. With the soul arts, Allant brought unprecedented prosperity to his northern kingdom of Boletaria, but once again awoke the Old One below the Nexus, unleashing the deep fog and demons across his kingdom and neighboring lands. With the deep fog only growing, and none of the heroes who entered Valifax's tear ever returning, the fog threatens the world that remains. We can suspect that one world has already fallen. Take a look at the 6th broken Archstone in the Nexus. This was given to the giants of the northern lands, and it's blackened and crumbling, which brings us to world tendency. What is world tendency? So, a tendency is a predisposition or an inclination towards something, and in Demon Souls the world can be inclined towards either white or black tendency. In white tendency, demons are weaker, and in black tendency, demons are stronger. So earlier we talked about how the soul grants humans clarity, and that our perception can change the fabric of reality preserved by the Archstones. So therefore, it makes sense that each world actually changes to fit our perception somewhat, akin to a sort of karma. After death, for example, we naturally perceive the world as more threatening, and it becomes so as tendency darkens. After defeating a major demon, on the other hand, the world is perceived as less threatening, and world tendency lightens. When a world moves towards pure tendency in either direction, interesting events occur. When the world is inclined towards black tendency, for example, demonic presence is strengthened, and primeval demons are even born in the world. These demons are newborn and powerless, with colorless souls only fit to grow in a world that favors them. On the flip side, in world tendency, human encounters are more common, and the influence of demons is weaker. Just so, character tendency also exists. This is the perception of self, which is darkened after evil acts like killing another human in cold blood, or lightened after good acts like ridding the world of a black phantom. And if you hit pure white character tendency, the Monumental will give you the Allies' Ring, in the hope that you will aid them against the demons. All of their fellows have exhausted their souls in the years since the first Scourge.
Please forgive me, but I wish to concentrate. 'Tis no easy task being a monumental.
So they need all the help they can get, which is why you were revived. Why were you revived in the Nexus? A brave...
So I kind of want to go back on that segment because it showed off a lot of interesting things. I did like the explanation of world tendency, and it does make sense in like a actual, like not only just gameplay, but in a story-wise sense, where the soul is what kind of brings about clarity and everything like that. How you perceive the world should be affected, but it does make me want to question the broken Archstone. I just wonder if the perception of its existence could bring it back. And then really what I'm trying to do is find a story loophole in the hopes that maybe they bring back the Archstone in some DLC. But again, you know, if they do bring it back, they're going to try to want to fit it into the story. And I wonder if perception is going to be that loophole that they find. Not necessarily a loophole, but the in that they need.
They can get, which is why you were revived. Why were you revived in the Nexus? A brave soul who fears not death. You were brought here to destroy every last demon. Without demons to feed its souls, the old one will seek a new servant and lure you below. So you have to succeed, for the sake of the world that remains, and if not for that, then for your own sake as well, since you will be forever trapped within the Nexus otherwise. Only at the end will you be...
But it makes me wonder, well, how come they come back then? Is it a never-ending thing?
Or have the demons found a new slave?
So you must travel to the lands that are not yet fully enveloped by fog, and after you triumph over the demon phalanx, the Monumental unlocks all of the other Archstones that remain. What are the lands preserved by the Archstones? So each land has its own deep lore and story, and now that you've got the basics, you're ready to get into specifics. So subscribe to learn about all of these places in the coming weeks. There's so much of Demon Soul's story that really hasn't been uncovered before.
There really is, and I am looking forward to checking it out.
Displayed if you're interested, but just quickly about the lands. First, there is Boletaria, which is a land of brave knights that was once at the heart of a vast empire, now reduced to a crumbling ruin filled with demonic imposters. Then there's Stonefang, whose mines have unearthed a lava-soaked shrine and a dragon god buried within. Latria, once the land of the learned, is now home to the vengeful sadism and horrific experiments of a resentful old man. The fourth world is the Shrine of Storms, on the island of the Shadow Men, who worshipped storms and mourned the dead with unsettling rituals. And finally, there's the Valley of Defilement, a rotting haven for the ill-fated and forgotten, who have been swept up into a frenzy by the arrival of a true saint. Before I go, I also want to give special thanks to Loki_DS, who you should please follow on Twitter. In the years since Demon Soul's original release, he's put a lot of work into deciphering the lore and Japanese text of Demon Souls, which has led all of us to a more nuanced, accurate take on the entire game. I'll link in the
It's awesome how the community comes together and helps each other build off of trying to get a better understanding of this world. It's actually what brought me to Vadi's channels, because I do want a better understanding. I want to catalog my adventure of uncovering the lore, because I've always really wanted to get into it. It's interesting, but at the same time I do want to mention that I am learning, so some of the questions I have, or some of the arguments that I might try to present, will probably be answered in the future like lore videos that come out. However, I do want to mention that this is a learning process, so I'm probably going to get a lot of things wrong, but the discovery is really what I'm in it for. So yeah, check out Vadi. I know you guys already know him. He really doesn't need an introduction. I'm looking forward to exploring the lore of Soulsborne, so I'll try to be looking at a lot of different sources to try to make that happen. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already, turn on those notifications because they do help out, and until next time, take care.